He once said failed marriages are the ones where two people stay together long after they've stopped caring. So why at 86 is Paul Hogan still picking up the phone to call Linda Kozlowski? Not for romance, for something far more urgent. And the reason might be the part of this story nobody saw coming. One movie set, one marriage already cracking. In 1985, Paul Hogan was 45 years old and tired of being famous only in Australia. He co-wrote Crocodile Dundee, put his own money behind it, and cast a 27-year-old Juilliard-trained actress named Linda Kozlowski as his love interest on screen. Here is the detail most people skip. Hogan was still married to Nolene, his wife of nearly 28 years and the mother of his 5 children. Something between him and Linda stopped feeling like acting fairly quickly. People on set noticed before either of them said a word out loud. Crocodile Dundee hit theaters in 1986 and pulled in over $300 million worldwide. Hogan became a global name overnight. Back home, his marriage to Nolene was collapsing in full public view. Australian papers tore into him without mercy. For years later, in 1990, he married Kozlowski. To fans, it looked like fate. What nobody printed was the uncomfortable truth. This was a new marriage built directly on top of one that had just been publicly destroyed. Something Linda gave up that fame never replaced. Kozlowski had trained at Juilliard and performed Death of a Salesman on Broadway. She wasn't chasing celebrity. She was chasing craft. And craft was not what Hollywood offered the wife of Crocodile Dundee. Most scripts that came her way reduced her to the girlfriend of whatever comic lead the studio had already cast. One project gave her genuine physical stress symptoms from how badly it was run. By 2001, she quietly stopped acting altogether. No announcement. She just stopped. The industry she had spent years preparing for had given her almost nothing she came looking for. In 1998, she had their son Chance at 40, something she had wanted urgently before time ran out. She said Chance made her happier than her last 2 film jobs combined. That was real, but what friends described as the marriage frayed was a woman who felt her own identity slowly dissolving into being known only as Hogan's wife. Hogan believed providing financially and staying loyal covered the entire job description of being a husband. He was not wrong that he delivered both consistently across 2 decades. He was wrong that it would ever be enough for a woman who had once stood on a Broadway stage with her own name above the door. 2 completely different definitions of love. Living in the same house for 20 years. Never quite speaking the same language. In October 2013, Kozlowski filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. She was 55. Hogan was 74. Chance was 15. The settlement gave Hogan full rights to the Crocodile Dundee franchise. Kozlowski walked away with a lump sum just over $5 million, no spousal support, shared custody, and a transitional right to stay in their Venice Beach home. 23 years compressed into a single court document. No affair, no betrayal, no villain. Just 2 people who had quietly become strangers while sharing the same address. Hogan described it plainly in later interviews. He called it worn out. He said they were opposites in nearly everything: food, music, even the colors they were drawn to, and that those differences pulled them together at the start and pushed them apart by the end. Kozlowski told a magazine she had lived in Paul's shadow for years, and that stepping out of it finally let her feel her own light again. Neither of them made the other the villain, which is rarer than people think. After the divorce, Kozlowski moved between Los Angeles and Morocco, met a tour operator named Moulay Hafid Baba, built a luxury travel and film location business with him, and married him in 2017. She also invested her settlement into Venice Beach property during the exact years the neighborhood exploded in value. She built genuine independent wealth for the first time in her adult life, entirely on her own terms. Hogan's road was harder. Between 2003 and 2012, he fought a years-long battle with the Australian Taxation Office over allegations of offshore tax evasion as part of the government's Operation Wickenby investigation. In 2010, while attending his own mother's funeral in Australia, he was served with a departure prohibition order barring him from leaving the country. The alleged debt was cited at over 37 million Australian dollars. The charges were eventually dropped and a confidential settlement reached in 2012. But the damage to his reputation in Australia lingered long after the legal matter closed. By his 80s, the physical toll became impossible to ignore. He was diagnosed with retroperitoneal fibrosis, a condition involving a growth pressing against his aorta and kidney. Steroid treatment shrank the growth, but also stripped away his muscle and body fat so completely that he joked his dieting friends resented him for being able to eat anything without gaining weight. He required a pacemaker. He lost grip strength and admitted needing Chance to open jars for him. He said he had been genuinely strong right up until he turned 79, and that turning 80 was when things started falling apart. In 2025, photos of him in a wheelchair at Sydney Airport alarmed fans everywhere. He addressed it directly, explaining it was arthritis and a knee injury from skateboarding, a hobby he apparently still refuses to abandon in his mid-80s. Why he called his ex-wife. Chance, now 27, has struggled for years with mental health and substance issues that have occasionally become publicly visible. Last year, he posted a video to social media expressing a wish that his life would end, a moment that devastated Hogan and alarmed everyone who saw it. Then in May of this year, police were called to Hogan's Venice Beach home over a reported domestic disturbance involving possible violence. Chance had left before officers arrived, but was located and arrested hours later on a domestic battery charge with bail set at $20,000. Hogan was present at the scene. Details remained limited due to confidentiality rules around domestic battery cases. For an 86-year-old man already managing serious health challenges, watching his son unravel in his own home was not something humor could absorb. People close to the family describe Hogan as visibly shaken. One person used a single word: tired. And not just physically. What he did next is the part nobody anticipated. He called Kozlowski, not to revisit the marriage, not to process old feelings, to ask for her help with their son. Whatever distance the divorce had created between them disappeared the moment Chance needed both of his parents at the same time. That is the phone call from the beginning of this story. That is what 86-year-old Paul Hogan picked up the phone for. In 2025, the two reunited publicly for a remastered 4K release of the original Crocodile Dundee alongside a new behind-the-scenes documentary. Seeing them together again moved audiences who had grown up watching them. For Hogan, it gave him a sense of purpose he had been missing. For Chance, who supported the project, it was meaningful to see his parents in the same room again. But Hogan has been clear every time the romantic interpretation comes up, he loves Linda. He has made peace with the fact that loving someone and being able to build a life with them are two different things that do not always arrive together. What is pulling them back into contact now is not the past. It is a son who needs both of them more than either of them expected. One marriage that started on a movie set, survived 23 years, dissolved quietly without a villain, and now exists as something the law has no word for. Two parents on opposite sides of the world trying together to do the one thing that neither the marriage nor the divorce ever stopped mattering to either of them. Was their marriage a failure? Or did it simply end once both of them had become people who needed something the life they had built together could no longer provide? Share your thoughts below and check out the next video on your screen.